Former Trump campaign chairman Paul Manafort is now out of prison and is set to serve his sentence in home confinement. His lawyers cite concerns over COVID-19 as the reason for the release. CBS News senior investigative correspondent Catherine Herridge is following the story, and she joins us now. So, Catherine, bring us up to date on the Manafort case. What do we know?
Well, good morning, Vlad and Anne-Marie. Really, within the last few days, we've been learning through our reporting here at CBS News that there was going to be movement in the Paul Manafort case, and we had confirmation this morning from his lawyer, Kevin Downing, that he was released to home confinement from a federal prison in central Pennsylvania, and it's at home that he will deal with or run the duration of his sentencing. Just to kind of bring people up to date, Manafort was sentenced to 7.5 years for bank, tax fraud, and lobbying violations. He'd served about 30%, and his lawyers argued in mid-April that he ought to serve the rest under home confinement, really for three reasons. Number one, the concerns over COVID-19 in the prison system. Number two, he has significant pre-existing conditions, and then also his age. He's over 70. And based on all of those factors, it does appear that the Bureau of Prisons has allowed Manafort to serve out the rest of his term at home. What we don't know right now is whether there are terms or restrictions that are associated with that. So, for example, does he have an ankle bracelet? Is he allowed to talk to the media? All of those sorts of things we don't have confirmation on, but we're still working to get those details.
The judge weighed in. What did he say? And I don't know if you could, if this is something that the Attorney General anticipated.
So during the interview, what the Attorney General said is that Judge Emmett Sullivan here in Washington, D.C. does have a say. The Justice Department has said, we think the case should be dismissed on the basis that the interview of General Flynn was unjustified and that there wasn't a legitimate ongoing investigation at that time for which the interview would have been a material fact. Judge Sullivan really had a number of options. He could essentially agree with the government and dismiss the case with prejudice, or a number of legal analysts we spoke to here at CBS predicted that Judge Sullivan would want to call all the parties together in some kind of hearing or open forum to discuss the way forward. And it does appear that the judge has decided to put a decision on hold for the time being and welcome what are called amicus briefs. These are sort of public groups who weigh in, who may have a view or vested interest in the legal principles here, and they get to put their 2 cents in to the court. So this is sort of another chapter that's going to unfold in the Flynn case, so it's not going to end anytime soon at this point.
And Catherine, before we let you go, the nation's acting intel chief has apparently declassified records that show who unmasked General Flynn. First of all, just explain to our viewers what is unmasking, and could this potentially, could this unmasking be reported? In other words, would the American people find out about who has been unmasked?
Okay, so when we do intelligence collection, let's use an example as a foreign government official. That's the target. And in the process of collecting their emails and their phone calls and their text messages, we pick up other intelligence that involves U.S. citizens. So it may be their names, it may be the companies they work for, it may be what position they hold in government. And there's an obligation on the U.S. intelligence community to hide those names, what they call minimize those names in the intelligence reporting, unless it's absolutely essential to understanding the context of the intelligence and it's absolutely essential to acting on the intelligence. And what the acting intel chief has done, based on our reporting, is that he's gathered some very sensitive information. We believe it has to do with who revealed the name of General Michael Flynn in his telephone conversations with the Russian ambassador during the presidential transition. And the reason all of that matters with the Flynn case is because it was a media leak about Flynn's phone calls with the Russian ambassador, which was one of the critical turning points that sort of set the wheels into motion for his ultimate firing and leaving the White House and then his prosecution under the special counsel. The final point I would make, if you're still with me, is that this is very important information, not just for the Flynn case, but also this ongoing investigation by the U.S. Attorney John Durham. We've been talking about it a lot here on CBSN. He's looking at the FBI origins of the Russia probe and whether there were any criminal violations or it came down to misconduct. My reporting indicates that there's going to have to be sort of a meeting of the minds between the Attorney General and the acting intel chief, Rick Grinnell, over whether this information can be publicly released, because this is absolutely germane to the Durham investigation. And just based on my experience, it would be highly unusual for this information to be public when it may be central to any grand jury proceedings.
Catherine, it is a complicated story, but your reporting
I did my
and your
best.
clarity no, and I was going to say your clarity in explaining it to us and to our audience is really, really wonderful, and we appreciate you doing so. Thank you very much.
Thank you.